Hi Daisy, how are you?
Good.
Awesome. It's such an amazing studio.
Hi Daisy, thank you so much for sitting down with me today.
Thank you so much for your time too.
Yeah, so we're in the studio with Daisy Wang, the founder and the designer behind Dawang. So Daisy, I was wondering, when did you first get into fashion and apparel design?
So I actually got into fashion back in high school. When I was in a boarding school in California, we were required to take, either 1 year of art or music. And I had no talent in music in any direction. So our school happened to offer fashion design as one of the art classes. Well, my first experience was making my prom dresses. The first one didn't really last very well. I remember the beadings started falling apart halfway when I was walking around. So after that, set a inspiration and a mindset for me that, hey, this is the area that I'm interested in.
So yeah, could you tell us a little bit more about your cultural background, how growing up in China has affected your designs, and also you mentioned the fact that you really want your clothes not to be seen as gimmicks, and how you stay true to showing the culture through your clothing.
So I was born and raised in northeastern part of China till I was 15. That's when I went to boarding school and eventually moved to New York. A few of the things that I've also been discussing with my friends are because I spent my first 15 years in China, so in a way I never experienced some of the hate crime, some of the racism, that was happening around the same time in the States that some of us growing up had a lot of experience with. And that kind of made me never really felt shied away of wearing something that represents my culture, or expressing my love or my support or my aesthetic of wanting to welcome people of all culture to experience, understand, and appreciate it. To me, one of the ways to express it, because I know there's no exact way to express that, okay, this is not a gimmick, this is not a costume, because no matter what we create, no matter what we make of, there's 100 ways to wear it in fashion, and there's 100 ways to portray it. When I first created that way, and I was especially inspired by one of the quotes from the founder of Uniqlo. I don't remember his full name, but he says something like, we're not trying to create the ideal fashion that's gonna set your mind, that you're gonna set your mind with. We're just trying to offer you the individual pieces of fashion. The end result, what happens, is gonna be at your end. Whatever you create, whatever you puzzle these pieces with, that's your style, that's your fashion. So that kind of led me to think about, how do we define that you're appreciating our designs, our aesthetics, instead of appropriating them. I guess one of the best ways is just that, as an individual customer, as an individual viewer, how do you understand our culture? How much do you understand it? How much are you willing to, pay the effort to appreciate it, to understand that, which is why we just launched our Dawang blog as well, because we wanted to, express, maybe you love the textile, maybe you love the pieces that we create, some of the stories behind it, some of the histories behind it. We're trying to bring them back. We're trying to re-educate, because even as a born and raised Chinese myself, there are still stuff that I'm lacking of, that maybe I don't completely understand yet, which is also still a route for me to also educate myself. But it's just, I guess, for us to, not for the costume part, ourselves who's wearing the pieces will have to appreciate them first. We'll have to have the confidence that, hey, this is made for me, that this is my style, instead of having the doubt yourself and then moving towards, when people ask you, just oh, it's just a costume for the day. We don't want that kind of mental set or mindset for people or for our customers, if that makes sense.
I guess first, what is it like to see somebody wearing clothes that you design? How is that experience for you?
Yeah, I remember I want to say the first year of starting up, I saw this girl wearing our chica down the street, and I didn't want to stalk her, but I kind of like walk at least like a block following her. I'm just like, oh, it's nice. It's nice to see like somebody else like actually appreciating our aesthetic or, you know, the message that we're trying to send through. And yeah, that's honestly my motivation of what's keep me and Dawang going on, like moving forward, is just knowing that how many people is appreciating and supporting what we're doing right now.
Okay, awesome. Daisy, I'm super excited about these upcycled pieces and to see some of these incredible fabrics. So let's check some out.
So this is one of the upcycling pieces that we're working on. We're pretty much reconstructing it and also adding like our personal touch so that we're calling them one of a kind because each of the beading assortment on the pieces are different. And we also played around with some of our past season looks. This is also one of the upcycling pieces that we just created. So most of these projects we worked with our interns together to create them, even though we haven't launched them, but in order to show, you know, our celebration to like different minds, different design styles, we'll also be sharing, you know, their inspiration behind when they were making these pieces, when they were creating these individual, you know, beading assortments or these cut hole details. And for the upcycling collection, we don't want to strict it to, you know, having one person deciding on the style. Since we are already giving them a new life, we wanted to test out or experience as much varieties, as much different manipulations as possible, just to so that, you know, no matter your style, no matter your aesthetic, we hope that you can find something that's within your likes in our upcycling project. And yeah, so these are also some of our past season brocade that we've been using. Mostly it's based on, you know, my personal preference of what I liked when designing. And we also have some like softer brocades. This is like one of my new favorite. It's also a little bit stretchier, like more adjustable than the past ones. And yeah, so moving on to next season, we are working on some of our own brocade samples. The color's not final yet because it's taken us a while to making all the adjustments on our second round, but this was our first round sample. Yeah, so moving on, definitely, since we wanted to celebrate, you know, the brocade textile in general, you know, how different the shine could be through, you know, the different angles that you shoot it from, that you see from. Yeah, so we don't want us to see, it was also from my own personal experience of, you know, traveling back to China. I was visiting a lot of these like brocade retailers and manufacturers, and then that's when I noticed that the industry is slowly dying in China, just because when people think, when the designers in China, when they do like modern Chinese, when they celebrate, you know, the same stuff that we're trying to do, they're more leaning towards on, you know, following the traditional silhouette of some of these like more Chinese qipao, and then using a more Western fabric or using a different fabric. Whereas to me, I feel like all these textiles are so unique, all these the pattern, the technical story behind it, these are all so special that we shouldn't just, you know, let it die off. So what's our unique way of being able to celebrate it? So these are some of the ways that we are currently considering moving forward with our own collections. We'll be using more of our customized pieces.
Absolutely love the orange and blues on these brocades. I was wondering if you could tell me a little bit about what the inspiration was behind the collection that these pieces are in.
So for these ones, we actually used the blue and orange for one of the Lunar New Year collabs a season before that. And then when we were first making the round of these samples, one of the inspiration was you know, the collage recycling patterns that you see a lot on like blankets and patchwork pieces. So that's when I wanted to, you know, also express our own experience or our own way of recycling fabrics. So the first round samples, we actually used a lot of the scraps that was left over from the collaboration, and then we re-pieced them together on, like, say, this whole table. We will piece the different fabrics together and then recreate that into a new textile. And then from that new textile, we would then retrace them into the different patterns and then give them everything like a unique look of it. The black and white, we added those on later just because we wanted to have like a little more color combination, and also we did have some scrap fabric of the black also left over from a few samples that we were making at the time. So this color combo was actually more random than you would have thought, since but when we finished our first full piece of the patched textile of these 4 colors, I was just amazed by how smooth all the colors combined look in general, but also how unique it is, since we especially asked them to keep these patches in all different sizes, just so that we can reuse, you know, we can recycle them as much as possible instead of cutting them into the same exact shape following up, which was another thing. Yeah, that I was really glad that we ordered that around our first sample and how they turned out. But yeah, so we actually did receive a lot of questions though, because people would ask, oh, like, could you find a matching one like this for us, or the dress, or for some of the randomized patterns? But I'm just like, this is the beauty of it, just because each one is unique, because you don't know how you will look on them, in them, until like you try them out, since each pattern tells a different story and a different, how we piece them together differently too. It took a lot of work for sure.
Yeah, and I love that uniqueness, just as you're speaking to before, how everybody's style is unique. Having the dress truly be like there's no other exact copy,
Exactly, yeah.
it makes it just so much more personal.
Mm-hmm.
One question I had from what you've described is, being a one-woman show is incredible and takes so much time and dedication and a real belief in what you're doing. I was wondering if you had any advice for people who are either looking to start their own fashion brand or just like right now are dealing with, you know, being that one person who deals with end-to-end logistics for everything.
Personally for me, even though it's still, there's still a lot of struggles when it comes to, you know, not having enough support, not having enough help around, but at the same time, I am so grateful and so honored that throughout we've started from 2020 to almost, it's been 3 years, how much support, how much help we received during these times, especially within our community, you know, during API and all of these stuff that's going on, all these hate crimes that we've been seeing on a daily basis. I feel like the pros out of it is how tight and close you feel, and how much support you receive from people who's understanding our pain, people who's understanding what we're going through. But to young designers, or to you who wants to start a brand, I'd say go for it. I say, if this is your dream, if you are determined to, you know, express your own voice, express your own ideal of fashion or ideal of whatever you are making, whatever you're creating, don't give yourself the chance to regret it later on. If you do believe in it, if you think this is something that's missing in this world, something that only you can bring it to, only you can make it happen, don't miss the chance. Yeah.